artificial intelligence. What do you think of when I say those words? 10 or 20 years ago, you probably thought of evil robots waging war against the human race. Today, though, you probably think of weird-looking images and students using sketchy websites to write their essays for them. So what changed? Why do we think of it so differently today? The public image of AI has been heavily influenced by the way it's been depicted in films. So let's look at the most popular depictions of AI in film, and maybe we'll get a clue as to why pop culture has changed its mind on this subject. The first movie we're taking a look at is Stanley Kubrick's 2001 A Space Odyssey, released in 1968. There's a lot going on in this movie, but we're going to focus specifically on the Mission to Jupiter section. The AI system on the ship taking our characters to Jupiter, known as HAL 9000, picks up on our characters' hesitancy about the mission. In response, the AI turns on them, killing 3 of the members who are in cryosleep, launching one of them into space, and locking another one outside of the ship.
Hello, Hal, do you read me? Do you read me, Hal?
Affirmative, Dave. I read you.
Open the pod bay doors, Hal.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
What's the problem?
I think you know what the problem is just as well as I do.
What are you talking about, Hal?
This mission is too important for me to allow you to jeopardize it.
I don't know what you're talking about, Hal.
I know that you and Frank were planning to disconnect me.
HAL 9000's only physical form is an ominous-looking eye on the control panels of the ship. His voice is monotone and emotionless. He's not portrayed in an empathetic way, only as a powerful and opposing force for our human characters to overcome. He is very clearly positioned as the antagonist of this section of the movie. The Terminator, released in 1984, takes a very similar approach. Despite the T-800's more human appearance, it's still emotionless and largely devoid of any sort of empathy. Again, it is very clearly the villain. This movie also shows the human race in the future at war with an AI program that they created. And this war is very clearly presented as a good versus evil conflict. We're meant to side with the humans, not the machines. Keep that in mind for later. Moving into the 90s, Terminator 2 takes a different approach. Terminator 2 does add some ambiguity to the mix, with the T-800 returning, reprogrammed by humans to defend our protagonists. The war and the evil robots are still very clearly portrayed as evil villains, but the T-800 in this movie is portrayed as heroic and even tragic when it has to sacrifice itself for the sake of humanity.
I have to go away.
No, don't do it. Please, don't go.
I must go away, John.
No! No, wait. Wait, you don't have to do this.
Sorry.
No, don't do it. Don't go.
It has to end here.
I order you not to go. I order you not to go. I order you not to go.
I know now why you cry. But it's something I can never do.
The main characters very clearly care for this robot, and so it makes it much more sad when it has to say goodbye. You could still make the argument that this robot is just following orders, and the other robots and AI are still very clearly evil. The T-800 is just the exception to the rule, and it fights alongside the humans against the evil machines and robots. Very similar to the Terminator movies, the Matrix franchise, which debuted at the end of the 90s, shows humanity at war against evil machines. Again, this war is not presented with any sort of moral ambiguity, it's very clearly good versus evil. That evil just happens to take the form of evil machines. In the 2000s, however, we see something new. In Steven Spielberg's movie AI, which was released ironically enough in 2001, our AI characters are very clearly displaying emotion. AI explores the ambiguity of whether these AI robots can really be considered people or not. And the audience is meant to empathize with the main character, who himself is an AI robot. The robots still largely act in accordance with our programming, but they're able to show emotions, make decisions, and since our protagonist is a robot, the humans who hate robots are portrayed as antagonists. This is an example where you're actually supposed to side with the robots against the humans, something we'll see more of going forward. Interstellar is a very interesting case, since it resembles 2001: A Space Odyssey a lot. It's a space adventure full of wild imagery and crazy settings, but it does differ in some major ways, and it definitely differs when it comes to AI characters. There are two prominent AI characters in this movie, and they're not portrayed in the creepy, emotionless way that HAL 9000 was. They're actually companions, they're helpers to the protagonists. There's a couple times in the movie where I couldn't tell that it was a robot speaking. Their voice sounds just like a regular person's. You even feel kind of sad for one when it launches itself into a black hole.
Lander 1, prepare to detach. On my mark.
3, 2,
1. Mark.
detach!
Goodbye, Tars.
Goodbye, Dr. Brent. See you on the other side, Coop.
See you there, Slick!
Since the 2010s, AI has only become more prominent in our culture, as we find more and more uses for it. One of the more recent movies tackling AI is Gareth Edwards' The Creator. At the start, The Creator seems very similar to the Terminator franchise, right down to the nuke going off in Los Angeles. But it goes in a very different direction. Just like in the Terminator, the humans are at war with the robots, but this time there are humans allied with the robots. And the robots range from very clearly robot to robots with human faces who can display emotion and make decisions. Even the clearly robotic characters who work for the humans are still portrayed as free-thinking beings. They still have to follow orders, but not entirely in the same way that they would have in other movies. They act more like soldiers following orders than they do computers following programming. The audience is meant to empathize and root for the robots, even to the extent of rooting against the humans. Very similar to AI, one of the main characters in The Creator is a robot child, portrayed as a girl this time, which is uncommon, as most AI characters are usually portrayed as male. This child is taken in by our protagonist and cared for basically like a real child, very similar to the T-800 acting as a father figure for John Connor in Terminator 2, just with the roles reversed. We care for the child in The Creator because the main character cares for the child. In fact, the AI character is basically treated like a regular person, just with more abilities and less ears. And the same is pretty much true for every other robotic character in the film, even the less human-looking ones.
By studying the human brain, we have given independent thought and life to robots, allowing them to join the American workforce almost like real people.
Now, a new technology is bridging the gap between humans and AI, making us closer than ever. By scanning your own facial features, we can give them to a fully robotic body, making them more human than human. With a simulant, the future's never looked better.
AI is integrated into all parts of our day-to-day life. They cook our meals. They drive our cars. They are our civil servants.
But why is this? Why are artificial characters portrayed so differently than they used to be? How did they go from obviously the villain to morally ambiguous to very clearly the protagonist? Well, since 2001: The Space Odyssey, AI has become very real. Everyday consumers can actually interact with AI. You can have conversations with AI, you can have it create images, videos, stories. You can use it to cheat on essays, which I do not condone doing, for the record. It's really hard to say what AI will be capable of in the future. Will it be able to show emotion like we do? Does that mean it actually has emotion like we do? Maybe it will nuke us, I don't know. The moral ambiguity and questions brought up in these movies about AI are real questions that we may have to struggle with in the next decade. Whether or not these movies are really predicting the future or not, it's hard to deny the correlation between the rise of AI in real life and the rise of empathetic AI characters in fiction. Maybe the filmmakers are just preparing us to embrace our robot overlords, who knows? I'm sure as AI in real life changes, our depictions in film will change too. Maybe it'll go back to being the villain. Maybe it'll stay ambiguous. Maybe in the future they'll be treated just like regular characters. No different than the human characters. Only time will tell.